Car Con Carne has gone through some significant changes lately. The most important being that I'm in space right now. If you're looking at me on the video on Facebook Live or on YouTube, I'm coming to you from outer space. I love doing this Zoom video chat with the custom backgrounds. My guest today is Phillip-Michael Scales. We'll be talking to him shortly. I should mention before we begin, Car Con Carne is sponsored by C&H Financial Services. When the world gets back to normal, when things start feeling like they did back in February, all those weeks ago, visit freeprocessingnow.com or call 855-600-2437 extension 999 so you can start saving money, business owners. All right, so Phillip-Michael Scales is here. Hello, Phil. Phillip-Michael Scales. Good. I mentioned that the show is different now. Usually I'm in my car. Usually we're doing interviews there and eating from different restaurants. It is now quarantine con carne. This is the world we're living in. Are you actually eating food as we're talking? Are you living up to
I made a little cheese plate. I went to Trader Joe's and had myself a good time.
Wait, hold that up again.
You know, you got a little bit of stuff, a little brie, a little bit of Gruyere, you know, a little baguette.
You're living fancy over there.
You know, when they go low, we go high.
I've heard that.
You know,
Phillip-Michael Scales, you are one talented singer-songwriter, artist, and the arts performance has been in your blood forever. You started in musical theater as like a kid, right?
I was 9 years old.
Was this something you
put on stage?
Did your parents steer you in the direction of acting?
No, I think they were just like, I was just that kid, and they were just like, okay, cool. And actually, it was funny because I was in Joseph with Donny Osmond, and my sister got in, and I was too young to get in. But
you were in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat as a 9-year-old
with Donny Osmond.
Right. That was a big show. I remember seeing that at the Chicago Theater back in the day.
Yeah, man. We did it in the Detroit run, and so I think we ended up doing like 50 or 60 shows. But the funny thing was my sister got in, and my mom told the casting director, like, look, you get both of them or none of them. Let me know what you choose.
So you rode on her coattails.
Yeah, essentially.
Starting off in the theater at such a young age and just having that in your blood from a young age, how much did that part of your life, just growing up on stage basically, or how much does that inform what you do on stage as a musician today?
I think it totally does, man. I think it almost lends itself a little bit better now. So I was like really into Hamilton for a while, and like when it was in Chicago, I got to see it a couple times because I won the lottery a couple times. And what I've noticed is that people want to be in a world, right? Like now that we can see it, now that we can hear it, now that we can like Instagram live it and all that stuff, I feel like people want to be in a world. And so for me to be able to craft a brand that like is, you can look at and you can see and you can do things, like I feel like it's kind of theatrical, but like, you know, if you're paying $10, $15, $20 for a ticket to come see a show, like you want to see a show, you know, like, I mean, maybe you want to see like some dude like strum an acoustic guitar and be like, these are my feelings, whatever. And that's great and wonderful. But like on some level, like we love Lizzo because she's got backup dancers, and we love Lizzo because she's got like a flute, she plays flute and then she twerks and all that stuff. Like that's what we're talking about. You know what I mean?
You want something immersive as a fan. You want to check out for 2 hours.
Yeah, for sure. And I like, as a performer, like I like that rhythm. I like that rhythm of like going on tour and doing the same show every night and then being like, okay, cool. It changes a little bit here, learning more about it, you know?
When did you start? Has it been like 10 years since you started in earnest as a solo artist?
No. I was in a band. I was in a project called Briar Rabbit, and I was Briar Rabbit. So it kind of had a band, sometimes kind of didn't have a band. But yeah, so probably like, around 2009 was right when Briar Rabbit started. And then, Phillip-Michael Scales has been around since 2015.
All right. And how's your experience been coming up in the Chicago music scene?
Chicago music scene is good.
You occupy a unique position in the music scene. You can straddle a lot of different styles and formats and audiences. You almost serve like a utility purpose in the Chicago scene.
Yeah, man. I mean, I loved the Chicago scene, and you know, Paper Machete was like the first group to really give me my like, you know, start. They were like, we don't care what it is, put it on stage, and like, you know, it kind of ended up being this cool thing. Yeah, man, I love the Chicago music scene, and I think that like it's interesting to see it versus Nashville in general, just because like, I don't know, there's something called like it feels like graduating classes in Chicago, right? Like there's like an age of like, you know, then these bands were popular and these venues were popular, you know, and like, I don't know, man, you all played Taste of Randolph or whatever. And, you know, like it was cool. So I think I learned a lot in the Chicago music scene. And I think that like, there's a lot of normal people in Chicago who go see music, which is awesome, you know? In Nashville, everyone's a musician.
And when you talk about Nashville, you spend a lot of time in Nashville as well,
Yes,
for
yes.
clarity's sake.
For clarity's sake, yeah, I kind of split my time between the two at the moment.
Why don't you commit to one or the other?
Why when you can have both?
Fair. I do like Nashville very much.
Have you had hot chicken?
I've had hot chicken. I'm a fan. I get it. I totally get it. So you were a Detroit kid.
I was. Suburbs of Detroit.
So the blues were kind of in your blood. Well, the blues were definitely in your DNA. I guess it only makes sense that you would find your way to Chicago.
Yeah.
With the blues in your bloodstream.
Yeah, and you know, I think that Chicago's always been that town that's like, man, if you grow up in the Midwest, it's Chicago. You know what I mean? If you grow up in the East Coast, it's New York, and if you grow up on the West Coast, it's LA. You know? Right. But like, yeah, there's something about Chicago, and I lived in LA for a minute, and I moved back to Chicago. Like, I don't know, man. There's something about the Chicago vibe that is just so me.
How are you handling coronavirus and sheltering and being stuck where you are as a musician who lives for playing in front of audiences?
Lots of Lysol wipes. But, you know, I mean, it's cool because as an artist, I have a lot of things to do, you know, a lot of boxes to check and things that like you just kind of let go to the wayside, like an online store or an email newsletter or whatever. You're like, I got to play the show. I got to do this thing. I got to get ready for tour. And so it's been a cool time to like stop, breathe, write songs, like do the thing, you know. Luckily, I ended a tour in February. So like I'm kind of all right for right now, but you know, I mean, it's tough, you know, but like FaceTiming, washing my face, like trying to get as much of a routine as I possibly can. Like, you know, that's kind of been my vibe. And then having creative conversations like this, you know?
I think getting into a routine is critical.
Yeah. What's your routine been so far?
Well, I've been lucky enough to be able to work from home during the day. So I have a basic 9 to 5 routine. And I set it up for myself that I'm doing this podcast Monday through Friday now. Every weeknight at 8:00, I record the podcast. So it gives me structure. It gives me something to focus on. It allows me to veer away from the shit show that's going on right now, and you know, seeing friends get out of work and wonder, you know, how they're going to make ends meet. It can be overwhelming. So for me, being able to throw myself into a podcast or work has been incredibly helpful. And I had a feeling from day one, the second I had the opportunity to work from home, I'm like, I need to do the podcast more. Like I know that this will feel really weird, so I need to distract myself. That's how I'm coping. And I get to talk to people like you.
That's awesome, man. I actually have my own podcast as well.
That's right. You've been doing that for a while.
Yeah, I did it for a while and then I took a break. And so now I was like, season 3 is perfect because mine's called The Company You Keep, and it's like a musician to musician podcast. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, well, I know you guys aren't doing shit. So I called a whole bunch of my friends and, you know, we talk sort of just like this. And, you know, we get to talk about what they're doing with the coronavirus. We get to talk about, you know, their story and all that stuff. So I definitely feel you. And I think it's good to get out of your own head, you know, like 100%. To be able to talk to somebody else. There's a thing about being a podcast host that is really good for someone who's a musician who's like me, to be able to like step back and be like this other person. It creates space and I like it.
Let's talk about some of the new music that you've released prior to the Corona apocalypse. Oh, Hallelujah. How great is this song? Tell me about the genesis of Oh, Hallelujah.
Thanks, man. I went to Nashville to record 2 singles. Neither of which were Hallelujah, and then this was just kind of like this oops baby that I wrote. And
isn't that how all the great songs happen?
The last biggest song I had was also an oops baby. Like I just feel like there's something about not overthinking it and then just knowing that's the song and pulling the money out of thin air to be like, I gotta go record this now. And yeah, man, it was just like I you know, I've got a wonderful lady in my life, and she lived in Boston when I lived in Boston, but we never met. And I was like, you know what? We were like talking one day, and she's like, "What do you think would happen if we had dated earlier?" And I was just like, Spoiler alert, Boston Phillip wasn't shit. So, yeah, so the song's just basically about like how timing plays, a big role in it. And it's been cool because I'll play it live and people come up to me afterwards who are like 50 years old and be like, oh my God, we blah, 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 blah. It's cool to hear people's stories, to be like, oh, this isn't just me. Like, this is cool.
Love the song. Tell me about Gold.
Oh man, Gold. Usually my songs are a bit heavier, and I was just like, you know what? Something needs to be light about this thing. And so I was like, why don't I write like a flirty song? And I was listening to a lot of Bruno
Wait,
Mars.
a flirty. Wait, this is a flirty song where you say love is a heavyweight boxing match.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm psychoanalyzing you.
There it is.
That's my form of flirting, right?
Uh-huh.
It's gold in my soul if you ever want to know me, and there's more to your soul if you ever want to show me. Like, that's how I flirt, right? That's how people flirt. No?
Yeah, sure. We'll accept it.
Yeah, so like that was that. And the coolest part about that song Gold is that do you know Zach Fox Jablow? Professor Fox. Anyways, he was in a band called Vespers, and he did some production for Chance the Rapper early on. He's been killing it in Nashville, so he was producing it for me, and like we produced and we produced and we produced, and we like had to make the song feel good. And so it was just the two of us, and then I took it into Lightning 100, which is a huge station in Nashville, and it's super influential. And I took it into their music meeting, and they were like, we like this song, and it's been playing on the radio. And I've been fortunate enough to hear my own stuff on like the radio while I'm driving, and like almost crashed my car because I was like, holy shit, I'm playing. So it's been cool. So Gold is a great, I love that song.
So musicians still get that feeling hearing themselves on the radio. I love knowing this.
I think so. I mean, I'm not to the point yet where I'm like, oh God, me again. I'm like, hell yeah, turn that shit up. Hey.
I'm going to use this as a segue to talk about your uncle, B.B. King.
Yes, sir.
Because he told you a story a long time ago about facing racism on the radio back when he was coming up. Do you remember that story?
Just everywhere, I mean, he faced it in every facet, and man, I remember, so there's a podcast episode of me talking to him. It wasn't a podcast then, but it was just me interviewing him for a paper. And man, we were talking about, just the things and how, I mean, remember one time he said that they were on a bus and they couldn't go into the restaurant. So they brought the food out to the bus. And then as they were finished, they gave the glasses and stuff back, and the busboy smashed the glasses and said, these are too dirty for us to clean.
That makes my flesh crawl. Like, I can't even hear that.
Man.
That's a real thing that happened.
That's a real thing that happened. So it's crazy to think that from a man who literally grew up working on plantations to literally go to see President Obama, like that is so much life to live. And that is such a swath of world American history that so man, yeah, I mean, his work ethic, his humbleness, his everything was kind of ingrained in me. He was my hero since I was a kid. He's still my hero. And, that's actually that's the wrong one. So it's a Basquiat crown. And then there's the DNA. And then there's the Kendrick lyric that says, I got royalty, got loyalty inside my DNA. But yeah, man, I mean, he's just been a huge role model. And no matter how big he was always nice. And I've never heard any stories from anyone aside from just like, I met your uncle. He was the nicest dude I've ever met in my entire life. He was so sweet. He didn't have to be there. He didn't have to stay, but like he did, and he talked to us. And so like, where do I get off being like, ugh, excuse me, there's no charcuterie in my green room? Like, like.
Well, I always found his public persona to be absolutely endearing, charming. I saw him, this was, I mean, probably early 90s. I saw him at Cubby Bear, and he was
wow.
It was just spectacular. He just had warmth.
Yeah.
A real bona fide, like no Star Trip warmth on stage.
Yeah. And he told me once, we were sitting in Chicago, I think he was doing House of Blues, and my buddy was like, how do you keep it fresh every night? And he's like, you just don't try to do the same show you did last night. Like, you just take the room for what it is, whatever, wherever we're at. I mean, obviously he had a show and it was a thing, but like, it was, he really, he was there, he was present. He wasn't just getting off a bus and being like, "Hello, Chicago, what's up?" And then like, you know.
So you took lessons from him on how to kind of navigate through life and a career.
Yeah, you know, I mean, in that like watchful way, right? Like it was way more of like a less of a mentorship and way more of like a, you know, my grandpa died when I was 9 or 8 or something like that. So, you know, it's funny because like as I got older, you know, you always want to sit next to the elders at dinner, you know, like
Yeah,
when it's Thanksgiving, like they got all the gossip and you just like
totally.
appreciate them more. When you're a kid, you're like, I don't know, like whatever, they're old, I don't get it. And then like you get older and you're just like, tell everything.
Absolutely. Spill.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're sequestered. You're not doing much publicly right now.
Nope.
With these new songs, these tastes of what's to come, is there a lot more to come once you get sprung?
Yeah, yeah. Especially probably because I'm just going to keep writing tons of music here because I can't help it.
It's almost a happy accident. Okay, I'm stuck at home. I better be creative and productive.
Absolutely, man.
I love it. All right. If people want to follow you, hear you, adore you, where do they go?
They can go to phillipmichael.net, Philip hyphen dash, whatever you want to call it, Michael.net, or just Spotify, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. I'm there.
Yeah,
Hang out with me.
you're a musician in 2020. That's how it works.
Absolutely, right?
How comfortable do you feel you're in your kitchen right now, aren't you?
Yeah. How many
How,
songs have I written?
fair. Do you feel comfortable playing over web chat?
Yeah, man. Can I please play for you over web chat?
Not even a please. Yes, of course. I would love that. Phillip-Michael Scales, as you kind of get organized here, I just want to talk about what's coming up on Car Con Carne, Quarantine Con Carne in the nights to come. Tomorrow is International Whiskey Day. All around the world, it's known as International Whiskey Day. So I have a representative from Aberlour Scotch talking about making the perfect whiskey sour and explaining exactly what Scotch is, because we think we know, but we don't. And next week, Bobby Telemine, rock and roll photographer. He has shot everybody over the past decade and a half, and he's going to unveil over web chat his 10 favorite images that he's ever taken. Cool stuff. And because we do video chat now, some really fun stuff to look at. Also, I'll be talking to local singer-songwriter, old friend David Singer, who just put out some new stuff. A lot coming up. We're doing this every night. It is Quarantine Con Carne, and I believe he is ready. It is Phillip-Michael Scales.
Song's called Gold. The last love I left you realize you still feel it. You came to have a drink with the sky. You don't wanna let me in. I can't blame you. I'm just a pretty face at the bar. Love is a heavyweight boxing match. Don't pull punches, no, it don't hold back. Last time I knocked you out cold, but there's gold in my soul. If you ever wanna know me, you've been burned before. There's more to your soul. If you ever wanna show me, I'm outside your door and glitter ain't gold. Rigging your romance ain't healing. Only bring home a man when it don't stand a chance. So come dance with this feeling. Let those walls fall down. Let me wrap these arms around you. Love is a heavyweight boxing match. Don't pull punches, no, it don't hold back. You gotta stay in control. But there's gold in my soul. If you ever wanna know me, you've been burned before. There's more to your soul. If you ever wanna show me, I'm outside your door and glitter ain't something in the way you move. I gotta see it through. You've been hurt before, girl, I can see the proof. I do whatever it takes. I wanna be with you. There's gold in my soul. If you ever wanna know me, well, you've been burned before. But there's more to your soul. If you ever wanna show me, I'm outside your door. But there's gold in my soul. If you ever wanna know me, you've been burned before. There's more to your soul. If you ever wanna show me, I'm outside your door and glitter ain't
door.